I'm Jonasz Rewiński, and you're watching TVP World Talks, where every word matters. Words matter in diplomacy, words matter in the course of negotiations, but ultimately it is actions that set the course for the future. And nowhere is it more true than in the Middle East. There is right now a battle of words, apparently mostly between Washington and the Israeli leadership, but also there are ongoing actions on the ground. Israel has been making bold moves, taking the fight to Hezbollah in Lebanon, but also fending off Iranian missile strikes. And right now the question is what Israel is going to do next, and is the Middle East a powder keg about to explode? We're going to try and answer these questions with our guest today, Marcin Krzyżanowski, expert on the Middle East from the Jagiellonian University. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, and thank you for your invitation.
So this must be a very hard time for President Biden. Can you summarize what are the main issues that the US administration has to face while talking to Israel about its ongoing military campaign in the Middle East?
The most important issue that President Biden's administration is facing right now is the issue of Israeli response for Iranian missile attack from Tuesday. The second is an overall situation in Lebanon, which tends to escalate a little bit more. And the third, last but not least, the issue, not to say problem, is the stance of Israeli government toward the whole conflict and toward the United States advices, as President Biden called the United States pressure on Israel. At the moment, Prime Minister Netanyahu tend to not take too seriously the President Biden's words.
Do you think he's not taking them seriously or simply applying them selectively, as in, look, you can only give us advice, obviously you're not giving us orders, so we're going to do what we considered best. The question is, will they strike nuclear facilities in Iran? Do you think that President Biden will convince Prime Minister Netanyahu not to do that?
I think that although it is a very problematic issue, President Biden will able to put pressure on Israeli government, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, to not attack the nuclear facilities. I think the Israeli response will be limited to strictly military targets.
What about oil production facilities? This has been suggested as the sort of midway course for Israel if they want to go beyond military facilities and exert real economic pressure on Iran while not yet venturing into this sort of unknown territory of attacking nuclear facilities.
Definitely destroying of at least part of oil infrastructure would be a devastating blow to the Iranian economy, as it still rely on the oil export to gain money. But as officially Iran warned, it would be not without consequences, as Iran threat that in case of blowing up its own oil facilities, it will attack not only United States bases in the area, but also oil facilities in the region, including in Saudi Arabia. Is of course not mentioned if the attack will be conducted by Iranian forces or Iranian proxies. Most probably the second option is more probable. And it would be a devastating blow to the world economy, as most of European oil came from the Middle East area.
How unstable is the situation really? Yesterday, a retired Polish general has given an interview to one of Poland's broadcasters suggesting that we might even be on the brink of a global conflict because of what's going on in the Middle East. What is your opinion?
And saying about on the brink of global conflict is a little exaggeration, but still situation is shaky and very serious. The patience of Israeli government is, I think, sold out, and also Iranians doesn't want to take a step back. So we are facing a risk of huge escalation, but within the region, without the risk of global war, although the global economy is in danger.
Speaking of the economy, do you think this is a coincidence that recently Saudi Arabia has announced that it's going to increase the amount of oil extracted and sold, which may, as many have suggested, impact the Russian economy? Why we're talking about that? Well, Russia and Iran remain close allies right now. So could this be a part of a bigger puzzle there?
Definitely yes. The oil price is very important. It's crucial issue not only for Saudis and United States, but especially for Iran and Russia, as an increase in global oil prices would be relief for Iranian and Russian economy. Saudi's move is targeted to keep the prices low by increasing output.
So now, coming back strictly to the military situation there, Israel has actually been making its moves across various locations, really, because after the conflict in the Gaza Strip, we have Lebanon, but we also apparently, according to the latest news, have a missile strike against a facility in Syria, allegedly located either close to a Russian base, or the Ukrainian sources say it was actually the Russian base itself, but we didn't have a confirmation of that. And also we have the attacks against the Houthis in Yemen. Do you think there is a risk Israel might actually spread itself thin, or do they know perfectly what they are doing because they know that they can?
Most probably the second option is more viable, and the Israeli confidence or overconfidence is taken from previous successes. And at the moment, nobody stopped Israel or even condemned Israel too harshly for its action in Gaza Strip. So they start a war in Lebanon, and many of Israeli politicians are pushing the Israeli Prime Minister to open war with Iran.
And that is a fact, it seems. Former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett apparently has advocated striking nuclear facilities, saying that this could actually allow us to completely change the security landscape in the Middle East. But coming back to what's going on, President Biden clearly has a problem negotiating with Mr. Netanyahu about the extent of the conflict. How do you think does this look like in the context of the presidential campaign in the US?
Pretty bad, because from one hand, the President Biden is unable to block Iran from attacking Israel, and secondly, is unable to lead to fully cooperate with the Israeli side. And of course, President Trump is beating the drum of how more secure Middle East was during his presidency, and how strongly he would react in current situation.
Do you think it is likely that the presidential campaign has actually become entangled with this conflict, or the other way around, the actors in the conflict have become entangled in the campaign? In an article in Politico, it has been suggested that some unnamed officials from the Biden administration are saying, look, Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening to us, he's doing what he's doing because he wants Trump to win. Do you think this theory has any foundations in reality?
Definitely, Prime Minister Netanyahu would like to see Donald Trump in the Oval Office in White House. But I don't think his actions are directly targeted on that. Most probably, he simply doesn't let's go, obey President Biden's advices, not because he's supporting Donald Trump, but because he can. And he can at the moment do maybe not whatever he wants, but a lot more than 1 year before, when there was no elections in the US.
So what do you think would need to happen for Kamala Harris to actually regain control of the narrative when it comes to the conflict in the Middle East? Because there is obviously this tension on, some of the Democrats are saying, look, we should provide more support to the Palestinians. We should not be quite as inflexible in our support of Israel. We should exert more pressure. So do you think Kamala Harris can actually provide some solution which could reverse this trend?
I don't think it is possible. I'm sure they will try, but at the moment, the situation is so complicated that regaining the control over the narrative for Democrats, and especially Kamala Harris, is quite impossible, and that would be very problematic for the Democratic side of the campaign.
And one quick question, speaking of narratives, do you think there is also a problem of consistency? Some Ukrainian commentators are saying, look, the US is shooting down missiles in the Middle East. They are not shooting down missiles flying towards Ukraine. And generally, the talk of red lines, well, it seems to apply differently to different countries. Do you think they have a point?
Unfortunately, yes. The alliance between the United States and Israel is something completely different than alliance between United States and any other, especially Eastern European countries.
So, of course, an added layer of complexity there. Marcin Krzyżanowski was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your expertise. And I'm Jonasz Rowinski. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us.